And he says hello. Brent, welcome. How are you today, pal? Happy Thanksgiving. Things good?
Happy Thanksgiving, Mad Dog. I'm fine, lad. Looks like we've got a game between the Ravens and the Steelers on Tuesday night, eh? Breaking news. I'm sure you've been all over it.
I have. We've done a lot on that, Brent, and we're going to get to all that in a sec with the schedule. You're good with that. I was just thinking here on a Friday afternoon, college football, that is right up your alley because you and Eric called that BC game with Miami on a Friday afternoon in 1984, if I'm not mistaken, when maybe even 83, when Flutie won the Heisman. Tell us about that game at the Orange Bowl. What do you recall? Let me hear.
There were several memorable moments. Jimmy Johnson was the coach of the Hurricanes, Miami at the time before he went to the Cowboys. Bernie Kosar was the quarterback for Miami. And Boston College played brilliantly, really, all day, even before the magic of Flutie. But it was late. It was on a drive, and the Hurricanes were driving. They were inside the 10-yard line, as I recall. And we had in those days, the Parab mics were huge. It was like a satellite dish on the sideline. And we had a very aggressive guy at CBS. And, man, he would get right up to them. And that game has been replayed, Mad Dog, time after time after time. But this particular moment was not included in the replay, and I doubt that it ever will be. Kosar came over to Coach Johnson during a timeout, and the Parab man was right on top of it. And my producer said, "Shut up. We want to hear the sideline." Of course, I'm a good trooper, so I shut up. And Jimmy goes to Bernie, his quarterback. He said, "Bernie, what do you want to do?" And Bernie goes, "Run the ball right the F at him." There was no mistaking what he had said. It was quite audible across America. And all I could think of to say was, well, I guess we know what Bernie wants to do. on the next play, he handed off, I believe it was Braxton, who dove into the end zone for the touchdown that put the Canes ahead and set up the great moment when all kinds of things happened. First, the kickoff return was decent for BC, but then as they lined up, there was a penalty, and during the penalty, when it was assessed against the Hurricanes, BC changed the play, and a couple things happened. We were in the old Orange Bowl, and there was only one elevator to get down. And, of course, the assistant coaches normally are allowed. In fact, they are allowed to go down before the media, broadcasters, to get down into the locker room. The defensive assistant coach, thinking that Miami, who was up in the box, in fact, he was the defensive coordinator at the time, he was in the elevator. And Jimmy was screaming under the headset, "What do you want to change? What do you want to change?" And he couldn't reach him because the dude was in the elevator thinking Miami had already won and was on his way down. So, Doug, for whatever reason, the Canes backed off. They had been in a press coverage when the penalty was called, but they backed off and they gave room for Gerard Phelan and everybody else on the Eagles team to run deep toward the end zone in the Orange Bowl. And Doug fired the ball, and there must have been 6 guys down there, arms, elbows, everything up in the air. And I saw that a BC player had caught it, but I had no idea who it was. And so in the initial call, when you're listening live, you'll hear the great cover by a play-by-play man. If I don't believe it, Boston College wins. But I was very, very fortunate in that the executive in the truck with my producer was also a Boston College graduate. And he was very quick thinking. Kevin O'Malley, I remember his name. He reached over the producer's shoulder. He grabbed the key to talk to just the announcers. And he said, "Brent, it's Phelan. Gerard Phelan." And I think I even called him Gerald the first time I said it, but then we got it corrected. And And years later, Doug Flutie and I were doing a remembrance of the piece and having a great time at Boston. And I told him the anecdote that I didn't know who caught it. And he laughed and he said, Brent, I didn't know who caught it. And he said, we were headed up the tunnel after the game, after we'd won it, and the center was jogging off right alongside me. And I said, who caught it? Who caught the damn ball? And the center said, well, Doug, it was your roommate. It was Phelan who caught the ball. So, it's lots of things. I always like talking about big plays with athletes. Years down the road, you learn so many nuances. Needless to say, Jimmy Johnson had a different defensive coordinator the next year. And it was a
yes, he did. What's funny about that play, Brent? That was not a great Miami team. They were great with Kosar, and BC had lost a couple games too. So I mean, when you think about it,
sure.
That is almost quote unquote a routine Friday after Thanksgiving game, and Flutie made it an historical game. And I don't know if he would have won the Heisman. You tell me. Would he have won the Heisman that year without that play?
Would have been a candidate, but that play locked it up for him. I just want to say it that way. He would have gotten votes, but I agree with you. There was an interesting player on BC that certainly NFL fans are going to remember when I mentioned the name. Bill Romanowski was a linebacker on that BC team. There were some players on the BC roster, and I remember calling Romanowski's name several times, but it lives in the memory bank because on ESPN Classic or wherever they play those old games every Thanksgiving, Doug Flutie is brought back, and listen, I have to say he's just one of the nicer people that I've had to deal with through the years. He was a terrific young baseball player, Mad Dog. I don't know if you knew this, but he probably had a chance at a professional career.
I didn't know that.
He chose
wow.
to go on. Yeah, he was a heck of a baseball player. And great.
I know a lot of people, Brent McDonough especially, always thought he got a short shrift from the NFL because he had to go to the Canadian Football League and nobody really gave him a fair shake. Now, he had a decent NFL career, but it got off to a late start. Do you think if in today's game with a smaller quarterback, Mayfield's not big, Murray's not big, do you think Flutie got a raw deal as far as by the NFL scouts, by folks thinking that he would not be a good NFL quarterback?
No, I don't think he got a raw deal. He was wrong place, wrong time. Today, they have brought in more of the college game offensive scheming, and Doug would have been ideal for some of these run-pass option plays that guys run. But let us never forget that Doug Flutie's the last person we ever saw drop kick. I think it was an extra point, okay? I mean, there are times in his career that are unbelievable. No, I don't think it was a raw deal. It was just the schemes were set up for pocket passers. They really did not want the quarterbacks on the run like they do today. Now, whether or not, and Mahomes is a bit of an exception because along with being a terrific passer from any spot, he also has the ability to take off, and believe me, he can hurt you with the run, as folks have noticed. But for the Lamar Jacksons, Kyler Murrays, those quarterbacks, I think the jury is still out as to whether or not you can win a Super Bowl with that system.
Agree.
You're going to win football games. You're going to cover spreads. You might even be able to win a playoff game along the way. But can you win a Super Bowl? And I'm certainly not convinced that it's been proven yet. Okay.
Yep.
So that's where we are. Yep.
I totally agree. All right, how was John Gruden? That was a rough loss. They played really well. How was Gruden after the game on Sunday night?
John's always very good, especially with the media. Obviously, he was disappointed, but they raised some eyebrows around the NFL country by sticking right with him and trading blows. And somewhat overlooked is that we had 3 defensive starters. Now, listen, I'm not going to pretend here to anybody that the Raiders have a standout defense, even when healthy, but we had 3 starters out on the COVID list, and we had our best backup defensive tackle out on the COVID list. Now, whether or not that would have made a difference on the last drive? I'm not prepared to say, because I really admire Coach Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and what they're able to do. We had a safety who was very aggressive, who made a mistake, and it was more mental than physical. When you've got Kelsey responsibility in center field, you do not abandon center field under any circumstance. He saw Mahomes roll hard to the right, looking for a better passing lane, and he quickly thought, Mahomes is going to take off, I'm going to go get him. And that freed up Kelsey to make the catch. Now, it's Jonathan Abram, a young safety out of Mississippi State, and I'm sure he'll learn from situations like that. I don't think that, he's done a lot of good things, but you have to learn. The NFL, more so than college, the NFL relies on intelligence, especially with your safeties. You just must know situation involving personnel and matchups that you're up against. And in Kelsey's case, he's a Hall of Famer as far as I'm concerned. He's as good a tight end as there is out there. And under no circumstance, I don't care if it's wide open to the end zone for Mahomes, you let somebody else try to get over there and track him down, and you stay right with until Mahomes obviously passes the line of scrimmage. You can't throw the ball anymore. Then everybody commits to who's running with the football. So those are the things going on. But I think Mad Dog, the Raiders, I think they've convinced a lot of folks that they're a legitimate playoff contender. We're not going to catch Kansas City. Kansas City's a better overall football team. We'll see what Kansas City does against Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. That's one of the big games of the weekend. Go down to Atlanta. A little bit of a trap game, because with our defense, we're still not quite sure who's going to be ready and off the COVID list. Matty Ryan, even though he didn't last week, he's still got a couple of pretty good receivers down there, and Julio and Ridley, and they can carve you up. They saw the tight end production with Kelsey. I'm sure they'll be looking to their tight end, who's a good football player. So we shall see. But the Raiders kept their heads up this week. Obviously they would have loved to stop that last drive and won it. But at 6-4, they're in a pretty good spot. They've got to win games now. They've got to win games as we close out 2020.
Yeah, good performance. I'm with you. I feel good about them. Before the quick picks, the NFL really maneuvering with this schedule. Brent, you still confident that we'll figure out a way to get this done? Baltimore now Tuesday night in Pittsburgh. The Dallas-Baltimore game, which was next Thursday, is moved to next Monday. A lot of moving parts. What's your take on how the NFL handled this in the last 24 hours?
Well, they've got the television networks on their side, and that helps them in maneuverability. When they moved the Steelers and the Ravens to Sunday, they left NBC with that game, and that would have been the first time that NBC would have had a daytime game on Sunday, but they have the contract to show it. And I'm sure they were more than willing to bring that game into a Tuesday night, at least at the start of it. It'll have a solid audience watching that, and then it was pretty easy to move the Ravens to the following Monday night against the Dallas Cowboys and not play on Thursday night. So, they're mixing and matching and filling as they go along. They're doing as good as they can, Mad Dog. There's no perfect solution to this, because there's no, the pandemic has no schedule, and you never know where it's going to erupt next. And you go along and do absolutely the best you can. And they're still keeping in their pocket. I've said it all along. When they called off the Pro Bowl, they have kept a Week 18 in their back pocket. If they have to go to it, they don't want to. And so far, they haven't scheduled any games. But if they have to, when they come down the stretch, it's right there. And then that, of course, would mean that there would be no week off prior to the conference championships and the Super Bowl, if they want to keep the Super Bowl on the same date. I'm sure that they have also explored ways with Tampa to move the Super Bowl. And one of the things in their favor is, when you're in this horrible pandemic, you will not have as many fans as you would normally have at a Super Bowl. So travel will not be disrupted, because the teams fly on charters, and the airlines obviously have a lot of equipment right now that they can move around and do things. So, you do what you have to do. I thought this was a good solution. I feel a little bit of angst for the Steelers. They've been thrown off a couple of times by this, but I have to tell you, if there's any coach in the league who I think can roll with things like this, Mike Tomlin would be at the top of my list. He seems very good at adapting and adjusting and going along. He gave the players had yesterday off in Pittsburgh. He gave them today off. So obviously the NFL told the Steelers there is a possibility that we're going to move that Sunday game to Tuesday. So Tomlin went ahead immediately and said, take another day off. And because they got cost their normal bye by the juggling of the scheduling. But of course, the Steelers, they want the Ravens right now in the worst way. And who would, any team in the league would want to play the Ravens right now without their quarterback, without their two top running backs, without their best defensive linemen. You'd want to line up against those guys. Steelers are very competitive, and they want to go forward. So, yeah, I have no complaints about what they're doing because they can't control it. They can't make it go away. It doesn't have a schedule. And so as things develop, you go ahead and adopt it. You've got these networks. NBC wants to keep Sunday Night Football, and they have heard that ABC is going to come after it. The networks are going to try to accommodate the NFL because even though it's down a little bit here and there, I mean, goodness, that the Chiefs-Raiders game was off the charts in terms of ratings. That was the highest-rated primetime game since the season opener. So we shall see what happens.
Yeah, good point, Brent, about the networks. NBC is probably happier that the game's Tuesday night from Sunday afternoon, 1:15. So you're probably 100%
Absolutely
right on that. All right, now, last week you actually went under 500, but so did I. So I didn't gain any ground. You and I were both 1-2. The one game that you won last week was Tennessee. It was a good pick. The one game that I won last week with the Colts, which wasn't a good pick. I got lucky. But you are 7 over. I am 2 under. So a T-box is still yours. You're well on your way as we head to week 12. Pick time. Mr. Musburger kicks us off. I'll give you the lines as we move it along. National Football League. It's Thanksgiving weekend. Week 12. Here's Brent.
Now, under our contest rules, Mad Dog, we have a line of the Steelers -4, correct?
I will
That's
double
the
check it.
contest
The Steelers, and our contest line right now, I have the Steelers at -4. That is correct. Yes.
And the Steelers will be my first selection. That number came out before Jackson was found to have the COVID, along with his two top running backs and several other players. I think there's 12 confirmed cases. So it's a Tuesday night game. I'm willing to wait. I would have thrown it out if there was any more uncertainty, but I think they will play it on Tuesday night. I don't know that RG3 can go in there and do anything against that Steeler defense. So let me have the Steelers -4, my first pick.
Excellent job, smart. Brent's not stupid, folks. He ain't beat Brent Musburger for 50 years if he was not so smart. Take advantage of the record. He's got a chance there. He had the first pick, and he goes from that standpoint. This is a weird one. I'm going to take the Bears on Sunday night in Green Bay against the Packers. Trubisky will start in the game, and here's the reason. The Bears have not lost a game this year by more than a touchdown. Did you folks know that? Maybe the Ram game earlier, but I don't think they've lost a game this year by more than a touchdown. And they're getting 9.5 points. That's way too many points. And the Green Bay team has not been nearly as effective at home as they have been on the road. Jacksonville almost beat them there. Minnesota did win there. I think they have, the Lambeau experience, it's been a little flat up in Green Bay. The Bears coming off a bye week. You know they're going to play good defense. Weather probably a touch iffy, although the weather's been pretty good around the country here the last 6-7 days. But I do think the Bears are a rivalry game. They still got a chance to make the playoffs. They're a game back of Arizona for one of those last spots. They're 5-5, Arizona 6-4. And listen, I just think this game's going to be competitive. Now, I did make the promise earlier in the year that after I picked the Bears like my 3rd straight week, when I lost in L.A., I was off them for the year. Well, I'm going to back off from that and go right back on him. Trubisky, a quarterback, his roaming could help. He played well last year in Green Bay. It was a relatively close game. It's too many points. I'll take the 9.5. Bears at Green Bay on Sunday night, game 1.
Yeah, Mad Dog, I agree with you. I've also jotted down too many points. They did lose one game by more than one touchdown. They did lose to the Rams back in October 24-10. But you're right. And the defense of the Bears They have not given up 30 points in a single game, and so that's a defense that keeps you in every game. So I'm in agreement with the dog on that underdog. I have it on my ready list, but I'm going to take with my second pick the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks are in a dogfight right now to wind up with the number one seed in the NFC. They're battling the Rams. They're going to be battling, obviously, the first place team right now, the New Orleans Saints. But the Saints are looking down the road at a game with Kansas City. And I want you to listen to the Seahawks next 4 games. At Philadelphia, versus the New York Giants, versus the New York Jets, both in Seattle. At Washington. I believe that the Seahawks can start to exert pressure in going for that number one seed. They'll have to handle the Rams on December 27th, but that game, too, is up in Seattle. Now, they're giving 5, but Philadelphia, to me, is a mess. They can't get anything figured out with their coaching staff or Carson Wentz. If the Eagles win it, they'll bounce back into first place in the NFC least, as everybody calls it. But I want to point out something about the Philadelphia Eagles. The New York Giants have split with them this year. So beware the Giants, who have swept Washington. But I'm going to go with Pete Carroll. And I want you to remember one other thing. After Thanksgiving, Pete Carroll's teams have covered 55% of the time. Give me the Hawks -5.
That's a good pick, Brent. Good job there. I'm going to take the Giants in Cincinnati in my second pick. I don't see how Brendan Allen is going to beat the Giants. The Giants, now it's a lot of points, and the Giants shouldn't be giving 6 points to anybody, but listen, the Giants defense has been pretty good. They've gotten some takeaways, 8 of their last 10 games. They've had at least 2 sacks in every game this year. Their defense is only allowing about 20 points in its last 5 games. And the Giants are very, very good with against the spread numbers. I'll give you a few of them. They are 7-3 against the spread this year. They are 5-0 against the spread on the road this year. And in their last 20 games overall, they're 17-3 against the spread. The Giants under Joe Judge will be competitive. The Giants, now usually against the spread with the Giants, they're getting the points, not giving the points. So I understand that. But the Giants play hard every week. They're coming off a bye week. Cincinnati's got to be a little demoralized without their quarterback. I got to see Brendan Allen play before I'm going to think he's going to score a lot of points. The Giants are playing for an awful lot. They know the Washington team is right there. There's an opening in the division. Daniel Jones has not turned the ball over. I like this game as soon as I saw it on the calendar. As soon as Burrow went out, I loved the game. I'm taking the Giants -6 in Cincinnati on Sunday afternoon. That's my second game.
Now that Roscoe Mad Dog, he took my third team, folks. This could be his big week. He's got the Bears, and now he's got the Giants. And to his point, when Daniel Jones doesn't turn it over, the Giants are 3-0. He hasn't turned it over for 2 consecutive games. When he turns it over, the Giants are only 3-16. I love that spot with the Giants, and the Mad Dog's got him. That means I'm going to fall back. I'm going to be the ultimate homer. I'm going to take the Raiders -3, traveling down to Atlanta. This team has been very good on the road. I'm just hopeful that someone can put a little pressure on Matt Ryan. Last week against the Saints, Ryan was sacked 8 times and intercepted twice. Now, a note that some people may not know about, the Raiders this week signed 2 defensive linemen off the street. Tack McKinley out of UCLA, Vic Beasley out of Clemson. They share one thing in common. Both of them have played for the Atlanta Falcons. In fact, the Falcons cut McKinley on November 11th. I like the intelligence that they can bring to the meetings and the practices as they get ready. But I'm even more hopeful that either Beasley or McKinley can get in a foot race with Matty Ice, and I think they can win it. So let me have my last big dog, Raiders -3.
That's a good one there, Brent. I don't have a problem with that selection. Now, I have 2 games that I love in my last 2 weeks. I'm going to take this one instead of the other one because they're home and getting the extra half a point. I love Tennessee, but it's only 3. Tennessee plays well in this series. Road teams win against the Colts, but I'm going to lay low, and I'm going to put my money on Brady, and I'm going to take the Bucks getting 3.5. The Bucks have not lost 2 in a row all year. Brady getting pounded. Brent, I haven't heard your comments about not shaking Goff's hand at midfield after the game. He's getting pounded for that. He had a very horrific game there, well, for him, on Monday night against that very good defense where he threw those interceptions. The Chiefs' defense is terrible. I don't like the Chiefs' defense at all. I think the Chiefs also could be a little flat. Pittsburgh doesn't play, so they don't have that to keep scoreboard watching. As you said a little while ago, they got a 3-game lead in the division. They're not going to worry about that. Going to play a Sunday night game in Vegas and a Sunday afternoon game in Tampa. That's a tricky schedule. And I just think the 3.5 for Tampa is just, now listen, you're not going to make a lot of money betting against Mahomes. Don't get me wrong. But I do like the Bucks with the getting the 3.5. I just think at 7-4, it's a game they have to have. Everybody's pounding on Brady this week. It's gonna be basically a breath of fresh air watching that Chief defense compared to the Ram defense. So I'll take Tampa 3.5. Tampa 3.5. Giants minus the 6 in Cincinnati, and then of course the Bears getting a whole bunch up in Green Bay plus 9.5. Brent, finish up. Go ahead.
I started off with the Steelers going to Tuesday night. It was an early line that came out, hoping to take advantage of that. Steelers -4 at home against the Ravens. Jumping on the Seahawks, who on Monday night are going into Philadelphia to play a team that seems like they're in full retreat as an organization right now. And then I'm going to jump on the Raiders going into Atlanta. Raiders have been better on the road this year than the previous 2 years under Coach John Gruden. As for Tom Brady, Mad Dog, he should have gone to the middle of the field and acknowledged the opposing quarterback. It's what everybody does. He's now done it twice this year. I honestly think that there's some unease between coach and quarterback down there. We'll see what happens this week. But I would prefer to see Tom Brady show up in his news conference when he talks about the upcoming game with the Chiefs wearing a Buccaneer cap and not whatever TB12 logo he's got. And I certainly want to see him at midfield acknowledging the opposing quarterbacks. That was a shame about Nick Foles. He didn't go out there against him in that Bear debacle because, remember, Foles took him down at a Super Bowl. So that's my thoughts on Mr. Brady.
Brent, you do a superb job every week. You know we love you. Have a happy weekend. Go get them Raiders for you. Appreciate you coming on here today, as usual.
Thanks, Dog. Take care. Talk to you next week.
Okay, Mr. Musburger does a super job. He's good with the picks, too. All right, the second half is about to begin with Notre Dame. Let's get an update with Seth Cantor and all the college football and other things. We'll take a break and then come back with your calls here on Mad Dog Unleashed.